Adoption is a profound journey of love and connection, but when it comes to interracial adoption, the experience often includes navigating unique dynamics of identity, culture, and of course belonging. And today we're joined by registered counsellor Cherith Langenhoven, who'll share her insights on this meaningful topic. Cherith, welcome to Afternoon Express.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I think maybe let's start with acknowledging the fact that we know adoption is intricate and there's a long process to it.
Yeah.
Then you add the dynamics of identity, you add the dynamics of heritage and culture, and it just becomes a melting pot of so many things that need to be considered.
Yeah, that's very true. Especially looking at our history, we still come from a very damaged history of racial, segregation, and we are, as communities, still experiencing that. And so, when we're looking at intergenerational trauma and adoption identity added to having to navigate being a person of color within white families, it's quite demanding on the child and something we need to recognize.
Yeah. How do families and parents navigate those complexities, and considering that children will have questions?
So usually with any adoption decision, you have to start and begin with some sort of social services where, they educate you, they prepare you, they highlight the things that these children, their children will face, so that they sort of just have an idea of what's to come, and then they're able to make an educated decision. So that is really one of the first stepping points into facing the adoption life with their children. It's starting with themselves.
Yeah.
And then after that, every day is just a family journey on its own. Let's
talk a little bit about some advice that you would give to families that are adopting or have adopted, and of course, there's different cultures there's different identity. How would you advise them to navigate those conversations with their children specifically?
So one of the things that I tend to highlight is, who are you surrounding yourselves with? Is your children, or are your children being exposed to people that they identify with within their natural environment? Are they having friends, or are your friends of a similar racial identity as your children? So that they can see a variety of roles in which their blackness or, their color is represented.
Yeah.
And so it's really about immersing yourself into your children's culture as well. So learning your child's language with them, not sending them to learn a language that is alien to you. It's really that willingness to grow with your child within their space, because it doesn't have to be separate.
Yeah.
It can be amalgamation of two cultures, but it's recognizing that there is another culture. And so to bring your child into your life, and if there's only people that they cannot necessarily identify with physically, you're really challenging their ideas of who they are, and it's more organic when you've already immersed yourself into communities where there's diversity.
I want to also talk a bit about, just building that resilience in your child, because oftentimes they have to go out and face the world outside of you and outside of the family structure. Friends have a lot of things to say and a lot of innocent observations. How do you build that resilience with your child, and how do you build that confidence so that they're able to step into all of that?
So I think we can just talk about adoption identity. It's something that gets focused on more than interracial adoption identity. It's the fact that you have to deal with an acceptance. And so resilience comes with acceptance. So the fact that your family was created through adoption. Language. How do you speak about adoption? Is your child constantly in a space of being adopted, or was your child adopted? There's a significance around that, because adoption is not something we choose. It's something that they choose. It's something that is created.
Yeah.
So if we see it as a consistent problem, all of a sudden we navigate it as a problem. So it's an acceptance of this is what has happened. We've created our family in this way. And so how do we build a family? And so with resilience, through that, they will develop their self-esteem. You will recognize the identity is different to yours racially, so you'll encourage those curiosities. And then with all adopted children, any child actually is teaching them how to emotionally regulate, self-regulate, and find their own sense of self-worth. Because that is what, for any any child in their mental health and navigating this world needs in order to deal with society or any sort of stigma or discrimination or just difficult times.
Yeah.
So that's resilience. It's quite complex, but there are things that they can do.
Yeah. Just finally, Cherith, strategies perhaps, maybe some quick advice for parents in terms of navigating all of this and, of course, creating a healthy environment for their kids.
So immersion, that's your first strategy. Do not come post problems. Okay. Be proactive. Immerse yourself in your child's life and then them in yours as well, because they're part of your family as much as you are of theirs. So it's immersion, constant education. And if there are problems, don't assume it's adoption related. Race is not necessarily adoption related. It's a South African issue. Yeah. So we need to navigate adoption sometimes separate from that. And so acknowledging that also your child might be naughty, there might be issues, it doesn't matter. It's just that the child can also just be a child. So don't, look to everything in a negative way. So when you educate yourself and you're proactive and you have friends that you can ask advice of, if you join this adoption support group, or if there are some challenges, not to send your child for counselling, try to find family interventions. I think that is the most significant piece of advice I could ever give. Adoption is a family experience. So when your child is struggling with adoption difficulties or struggles or challenges, they need a family intervention because they're not the problem, and that is not a problem for them. It's the navigating of the adoption life.
I think that's a wonderful point for us to leave it at this afternoon. And thank you so much for your information and for the insight, the advice, I think, most invaluable more than anything else. What a beautiful conversation. And I hope it's reminded us that adoption is a powerful testament to the universal language of love. But it also calls for awareness, empathy, and intentionality. Stay tuned, because after the break, Bali is going to be chatting to the sensational Moonchild Sanili.